The previous webinar, I talked about the financial programs, general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable. Today, I'm going to talk about the operations program, inventory, order entry, and purchase orders. So, what is productivity tools? As a product, it's a single product, single price, and for that, you get 70 programs. And I'm going to talk about the 41 operations programs today. When we use the term productivity tools, what we're talking about is saving time. There's the obvious, which I think you'll be able to pick up from my demo today: faster data entry, faster posting operations, faster multi-company maintenance. But sometimes there's more subtle things. A lot of time is taken when mistakes are made. So it's important for a software product to be robust and report what it does as well as what it doesn't do. And I'm going to mention something else. If you can minimize customer complaints, I'll mention briefly once during the presentation an example of how you can keep customer complaints down. So when you have 70 programs in a product, it can seem overwhelming. So the way of getting a handle on this is look at the first word in the product name. If the first word is extended, that means the program takes over a Sage 300 user interface program, a screen. We're actually launching the real Sage UI, and then we're overlaying buttons or behaviors. So it's not like a customization that replaces Sage's UI. We're using the real UI. And that's one of the reasons why we have one product that works across multiple versions of Sage. If the first word in the product starts with one of the second categories, complete, delete, update, that means our programs is doing hundreds of updates or operations at a time, whereas Sage 300 only lets you do one at a time. And then finally, we've got programs that show you more information or status. I want to mention today that if you go to TaiRox.com, we have a videos page. You can see these are all of the videos we have for productivity tools. They'll be more detail than what I'm going to talk about today. What I hope to talk about today, the videos say what the program does. What I try to bring out today is who paid us to write these programs. All of these programs are because some Sage 300 user, some company using Sage 300 wanted something that was critical for their operation. So I'm going to try and give some background. Why did we write this particular program in a particular way? Because you might recognize yourself or some of your customers, if you're a reseller, give you an idea of who might find these things useful. So 41 programs enhance operations. I say there's generally a theme that runs through that, and the theme is large. For inventory control, that usually means there's lots of items in the database, or there are expensive items. I'm going to give examples during my demo today. For order entry, it means large. It means lots of orders, tens of thousands or even 100,000 orders in the database, lots of customers, or lots of lines per order. What Sage 300 does with a 10-line order is very efficient. If you have to edit a 150-line order or 150-line purchase order, you'll find it can be quite difficult, and some of the features I'm going to show you today will address that specific thing. What do you do with a large order or a large purchase order? Here are the 16 inventory control programs. I'm going to show you a couple of these, but I wanted to have all of them listed here so that if you get the recording or the slide deck, it's right in front of you. But let's look at the first one, extended inventory items. So again, it's extended, which means this looks like the Sage screen, but we've added something. We've added something we called a smart finder in the upper left over here. And that means we've changed the title to a button. And when you click on the button, it searches like an internet search engine. I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. And then all of these other buttons down here are things we've added to the bottom of the screen. So smart finders, of the 70 programs, probably 50 or 60 of them have smart finders. Some have multiple smart finders in them. We use that term and we mean search like an internet search engine. So I wanted you, as I said, to give you some idea what motivated us to do that. Well, we had a customer. They were a hardware distributor, not computer hardware, hardware for home construction. So screws, nails, nuts, bolts, all of the things that you need as a carpenter or contractor. And they had been using Sage 300 for a few decades. Every once in a while, they would import a whole new set of products that they resell. And of course, every time they did, they would see different descriptions. So one vendor's description of a screw looked like this. And you can see if you were trying to find a particular screw out of 20,000 inventory items, it can be pretty hard. And it's not just the case for screws, but all of these other things. So what does the Smart Finder do? You type in a word, let's say screw. You might get 300 or 400 results, but if there's too many results, no problem. You do the same thing that you would do with Google search. You add another word or part of a word, and that narrows the search. If there's still too many, you add a third word. I'm just going to demonstrate that very quickly. The key aspects, though, is it's not just searching the description field. It's searching the comments field, the item being searched can be in any number of fields and in any order. In other words, if you search brass screw, you'll get exactly the same results as screw brass. You don't have to depend on the order. And with sample data, it looks like this, but it's probably better to just show you it live. So extended order entry, you can see Productivity Tools is a module, just like any other Sage module, and extended inventory items is one of the 16 inventory programs. I'll launch it now, and let's look at the Finder briefly. So if I search for desk, now this is sample data, you can see I'm getting a whole bunch of results. If I want to restrict the search, I just add another word. So I might add that. Now I get a smaller, and then I find the item that I want. Again, it can be in any order. So that's an example of a smart finder. There are many others useful finders like that in Productivity Tools, but that's the main one I wanted to show you. What are all these buttons here? Well, an item like the fluorescent desk lamp may have vendor details, customer details, pricing, location details, manufacturer's items, reorder quantities. But if I want to see them, I have to launch, and I'm using Sage's UI, I have to go to another UI and launch them, find the item again, just to see that one thing. So a lot of let me just use an example, customer details, I'll click, there they are. You don't have to leave the screen you're on to see more details. Item pricing. Again, here are all the price list and currency code combinations where this particular item is listed. And that's what all of these things are like. And location details, manufacturers. So it saves you time if you're looking at the details for a particular item. And if you want to see where the item is in use, you think, well, gee, this is an old item. Maybe I should merge it or delete it. Where's it referenced? Well, I'll just check. These are all the tables in Sage 300 that it's referenced. So this would be something where you might be doing a database cleanup. Again, when I showed our previous webinar, I showed copying general ledger accounts between companies. I'm going to do the same thing for items now. So when I'm copying something, and all of the TaiRox programs work in a similar fashion. There are filtering mechanisms here, and then I click a load button to get the display of the ones that match the filter, and then I can select them, copy them, and have a log. So let me just go through this very, very quickly. Why did we do this? Well, it's very common where I come from in Canada for people to set up two different companies. One for the US or Mexican customers, one for the Canadian customers. And so if you're adding 10 items, you might add them in one company. You don't want to spend all the time adding them in the second company. You just want to copy them over. So that's one motivation. Another motivation is this. I have inventory items, and let's say there's a category called color. I can get red, blue, or green of a particular set of items. Now I want to create, I get a new color. I can get a supply of a new color. Doesn't matter. Let's call it black. And then, but I want to add not to a new company, but to existing company. And if I have 10 or 20 or 30 items that have different colors and I want to add them, again, I can do that in one step. But I'm just going to demonstrate a simple copy just so that you can see. So I'm going to select all of these things to copy, click the copy button, and then these are all of the company databases that I have in my computer. There's several options. I'm going to show insert only, but there's several other options here. So this is just for adding. And if I say insert only, then it means don't update the item if it already exists in the other company. So, and then I click copy. I have to have sufficient rights, so either the admin user or another user who has sufficient rights. And you can see that if I do this often, I remember the password. And there, it's done. Now, again, I wanted to show you this because all TaiRox programs that do lots of things, they keep a log. If I look at the log, you can see here, okay, I'm logging on to a company here, and then it says item already exists, not inserted. That's because it's inserted over, or it was already there. That illustrates what I was saying before. It lets you know that an item was inserted, and if it can't be inserted for whatever reason, it tells you why. Now, if you're thinking about updating 100 orders and 95 of the orders are updated and 5 aren't, you want to know the reasons why the 5 aren't, and you want a list of them. And so we think logging when you're doing lots of operations is very important. I'm not going to show you another log, but you'll see log buttons on lots of the programs I'm going to show you today. So that's extended inventory items. Let's go and look at the next program. You'll see a program called stock reorder. Again, I'm going to not show the product itself, but you can see in a screen here. This arose because a mining company said, we keep a very strict inventory and Sage has a good stock reorder report. But once we get the report and decide all of the things we want to create a purchase order or a requisition for, we then have to type them in. And so could you guys write a program for us that would create the purchase orders or requisitions for us? And you can see that there's a drop down here. You can choose one or the other. You can do various vendor preferences. There's the same filtering. There's the same select all, select none. So, but what they said was, oh, but we want more. whenever you hear the first requirement, you always say, yeah, we can do that. And then they say, oh yeah, by the way, we want more. Because as a mining company, their mine was in northern Canada. They could only bring inventory in. That means like spare parts for their gigantic trucks. They can only bring them in the winter when the lakes are frozen. But they operate only during the summer. So what happens, what we want you to do is we want you to create the reorder amounts, but we want to be able to say, file, save, put it in a spreadsheet. We want to pass the spreadsheet around. We want to have people adjust the numbers, and then you read the spreadsheet back into your program, and then you create the purchase order or requisition. Well, why was that important to them? Because they had spare tires for the trucks. During the summer when they were operating, if a tire blew, they wanted to have a spare. But the spare tire cost $200,000. So that's why it went to the finance guys, because the finance guys would say, you know, we may not be fully operational this summer. We might only be operating. Let's cut back on our spare tires to save the money. Or they might say, we're processing gold out of the ground as fast as we possibly can. So let's have an extra spare tire for this year. And if we don't use it this year, it'll be there next year because we're not too worried about money. So that's a typical example. That's what stock reorder is all about. Some of the other programs, enter a item number. What kit is it being used for? Again, probably only useful for people with kits. A lot of the programs and productivity tools do a very small or simple thing. Another example of a small thing, but perhaps not so simple, is the program remove items from price list. You've got an old item, you don't sell it anymore, you can't get it supplied, you don't have any in stock, you want to remove it from price lists. Well, you can see there's filtering of the items, which items you're trying to remove. And then you can also filter for price list and currency code combinations and restrict for specific contract pricing, not just price lists, but contract pricing. So when we do a product, we try and do a complete product. So that's a quick look at some of the inventory programs. I've got a summary here. Again, I'm not going to read this slide, but it's part of the presentation that you can, if you get a recording or the slide deck, you'll be able to see a summary here. There are 17 order entry programs. This is probably extended order entry, ship orders, update orders. Those three programs are probably the reasons why people want to buy productivity tools. In fact, a lot of people buy productivity tools just to get extended order entry or just to get ship orders and update orders. So I'm going to talk about those programs and a couple of these other programs now. What does extended order entry? Well, if you remember, extended means we take Sage's order entry screen, pop it up, and then add behaviors or add information. So you can see there's smart finders here, there's customer optional fields here. We show quantities at other locations here, but some of this, and here you can see we can do subtotals of numbers of units. There's all sorts of extra information on the screen. We show margins on the detail lines, and probably the best way to see that is to run the program itself. So let me go into the order entry programs, extended order entry. And again, you'll see the Sage order entry screen with our own decorations. Again, there's a smart finder. If you look at a smart finder, I search for Ron. Again, we're showing it matches comments, address lines, customer names, all kinds of stuff, and also ship to locations. we're matching ship to locations. That's because in a lot of Sage 300 installations, they may have cash customers. They don't set up an AR customer for that cash customer. They use a single AR customer and have dozens or hundreds or thousands of ship to address. So they can track them for whatever reasons, for warranties or for the odd repeat business. But they don't want to clutter up their AR. And so that's an example of a smart finder searching not only multiple fields, but multiple tables as well. Okay, let's just let's just go to a new. Let's go to a new order. So here's a real order. So again, these are customer optional fields. They're not order entry header optional fields. They're not order entry detail. Why did this come up? Well, again, a customer has 5 people doing order entry all day long. They want those order takers to see what kind of customer is there. For example, they might give special offers or special treatment to gold customers. And so you can specify which customer optional fields you display. Well, how do you do that? Well, I'll just go briefly to our options menu. You can say, these are the optional fields that I want to show on the order entry screen. And there's a whole bunch of other options you can see. They have to have a purchase order to enter an order. If this field is blank, that means it's all customers. If it's an optional field, then it's only those customers where have the optional field says yes, where they're forced to do an order or add a purchase order. So you see there's a lot of different options. Again, our user guides and videos will cover more of it than I can today. But I wanted to say, okay, what are all these buttons we add? Some of the stuff is pretty easy. I think we've got, so there's margins on the detail line, but if I want to see the margin for the whole order, there it is. Well, that's not a very good one. Let's see if we can get, this isn't really a new one. I wanted to see. Yeah, okay. I wanted to see the margins, the margin for the whole order. Where did this come about? This was from a fruit and vegetable distributor where the prices are changing wildly all the time, but they have a certain base price for each of the fruits and vegetables, and they want to see that there's at least a given margin for each detail line, and more importantly, a whole margin for the whole order. Again, it's a very simple thing, but for them that was important because they wanted to have their order takers ensure a certain margin. A lot of these buttons here are for large orders. So if you have a 150 line order, why would you use you can use an item finder. This is just like a regular finder. What's a line finder? Well, if I have a 150 line order and I want to edit it, and I have 3 lines that I want to edit, I have to do a lot of scrolling to find them. Or I can just use the line finder and look for, do a contain, well, if I want to find desk. There's those. So you can find the line quickly, and then when I select that line and click select, now the line that the order is on is highlighted. Even if there's a lot of scrolling, it'll scroll to the right line and highlight it. So that, see, if you have a lot of orders that are large, this saves you time. What else? Ship. Again, this has to do with large orders. So some customers, they still print a picking slip. A person takes the picking slip to the warehouse, does all of their picking and say, okay, the order has 10, but we've only got 5 in stock. I'm going to put 5. They write 5 on the piece of paper. And then after they've done all the picking, they bring it back to accounting, and now accounting has to enter it. Well, unfortunately, the picking slip is printed in picking slip order, but order entry only displays things in line sequence order. So, I can say, okay, I want to show all the lines in picking sequence order. And that way they can just type the values in one at a time in the same order that they are in the piece of paper. So again, something pretty simple, but for some people, it's a very important thing. Set location. What does that mean? Oh, I set the wrong location for this order. Oh, it got mixed. It should have been location 1. Okay, let's change it to location 1. And then, yeah, I want you to set that for all of the items. Again, you can do this one at a time, but if you've got a very large order with dozens or 100 lines, it's very simple to do. Similar update allows you to update several other things. For example, the expected ship date, you can change it in the header and then change it here. So that's kind of what these lines are all about, large orders. But there's other stuff too. So when I'm putting together an order for this customer, I want to see if the customer already has back orders. There they are, all of the orders for that customer for which there are back ordered items. Okay, well, you can see where that might be useful, I hope. What about prepayments? Where did that come from? Well, that came from a customer who built grain shakers. By grain, I mean oats, wheat, barley. So they shake them as part of the process for delivering them to a grain silo that's used in a shipping terminal. But their shakers are giant machines that cost $100,000. So before they start working on the machine, they get a prepayment. And then when they're 25% through, they get a second payment, and so on. But there's no easy way. You can make a prepayment in Sage and link it to an order, but there's no easy way to see all of the prepayments. Well, you click the prepayment button. Now, this order doesn't have any, but you can imagine it shows you all the prepayments. So what is order for history all about? So this came from medical supplies. A distributor distributes medical supplies, and their customer phones up and says, I need some more gloves. I'm running out of gloves. I need to order a glove. And so the order taker can say, well, when you last ordered gloves, you also ordered these items down here. Did you want me to add those to the order? And you can see how that would help increase the size of the order. You'll see something similar for purchase orders, purchase order from history. So that's another thing. Let me go to something where I can, I don't want to post that order. It's true. Get to an order here. Still, okay, create purchase order. Now you notice Sage has create PO button here. What does it do? It creates purchase orders for all of the items on the order. If there's a vendor detail set up, and it does it if it can, and if it can't, it doesn't do it, and it doesn't tell you what it did or didn't do, and there's nowhere to preview it. So we created this because, again, you want to preview whether, and this will tell you if it can't be created, it will say why. We can use vendor information or a specific vendor or add to an existing purchase order. So there's all kinds of options again. And I also want to copy the order header comment to the purchase order header comment. I want to copy the order line comments to the purchase order line comments. So it provides a lot better purchase order. Does the same thing. And again, there's all of the select all, select none, create purchase orders, and there'll be a log. So that's a quick look at extended order entry. I'm going to do one more thing and create a new order. Let's say cost me 1200. I'm going to say I'm going to collect an office kit. So it doesn't matter. So it's got kit number 1, let's say. So this is a kit, but it comes from a company that supplied hoses. So there's a hose assembly that has 8 or 9 components, and then they have 20 different nozzles they can attach to it. They don't want to create a kit for every single permutation. What they want is to have what I would call a 90% kit. And then they would add the 1 or 2 pieces in order entry. And just so you know, order entry keeps a copy of the kit details in a order entry table. And when you collect the components here, say yes, this shows the TaiRox program that allows you to add new items to the kit without affecting the master kit or creating a new master kit. It allows you to change the quantities. It allows you to change the optional fields and so on. So this is an example of a program a company paid us over $10,000 to write, because for them it was very critical, and they essentially have 90% kits. So I'm not going to do that. And that's basically extended order entry. Now, Jen told me that some of the people she was talking to said, well, gee, TaiRox extended order entry, isn't that the same thing Sage does? So Jen has created a spreadsheet, and I'm sure she'll give it to you upon request, that has a side-by-side comparison with all of the different features. Here's a few of the light items for that to show you what exactly we're adding to Sage. Update orders, that's the second program. Now, you can see here are all of the things that we can update, a lot of different things. Again, why did we write this? The first thing was kits. Somebody used kits to deliver marketing materials. They had a marketing kit. And then they would create 100 orders or 1,000 orders for the marketing kit to send out to their customers. Well, what they found, of course, is when they start to put together the shipments, oh, we don't have any more of those materials. Well, they would do a substitution. That means they would create a new master kit number, but now they want to change that kit number on hundreds of orders. Again, with Sage, you can do that one at a time. They wanted to do it multiple at a time. You see, these are all of these different things that you can update. Again, I'm going to show you that briefly. So go back to the order entry tools, update orders. And you can see there's extended shipment entry that's very much like extended order entry. There's update shipments that's very similar to update orders. You see, here's updating kit. I want to update this kit from 1 to 2. Or I want to have an expected ship date. How did this arise? Well, I have lots of orders in advance waiting for my container to arrive from another country by ship. And I find out that the container has been delayed by 3 or 4 weeks. Now I want to update the expected ship date on all of those orders. I can do it one at a time with Sage, or I can do it all in one step, again with proper logging to say what was done and not done. And in this case, I can do this for all items, for a specific item, or for a list of items. What list? Well, I click the zoom button. I can enter a list of items, Or if I've got a list already in a spreadsheet, I can import that spreadsheet. And then I know which items that I want to update. So you see, there's a lot of functionality. Each of these different choices has lots of different characteristics. Update prices. Yeah, for this, I've updated my price list. Now I want those price lists to cascade to certain orders. Again, there's list of items or all items or a specific item. Substitute items, probably the most common thing, are the most widely used. Again, there's always refinements. We brought this out. You could, why do you have to have always a list of items? Because you have to say, this is the list I want to be from, and this applies to list. I want to substitute the dark gray phone for the black phone. And again, then you can import them as well from a list. What do these all mean? Only substitute items on orders that have never been shipped. Well, because if I've already partially shipped something, I need to look at it carefully. Do I want to use the substituted items price or keep the old price? Retain the line set quantity ordered to 0. So if my original order said black phone quantity 4, and I have to substitute a dark gray phone, I want the original black phone to be there with quantity 0, and the very next line should be dark gray phone with quantity 4, so that both appear on the paperwork or the confirmations or the shipping documents, and the comment in the dark gray detail line will say, I've substituted this for the black phone. So there's a lot of reasons why people use update orders. I've given you a few. Again, if you looked at the demo, we run through almost all of these, I think. I'm going to talk about one more item in order entry, and that's ship orders. So how did this arise? I think the first version was a customer. They sold training materials on their website that they were already paid for and downloaded. So in some sense, they were already shipped and already invoiced and paid, but their integration only brought those in as orders to Sage 300. So they wanted to ship them all. So in that case, they would collect all orders for the range of orders that were being imported, probably by an order date, for example. And again, this is something you could do one at a time with Sage, but we're doing hundreds at a time. I talked about treating your customers fairly, and you can see that some of these examples illustrate. First, I want to ship to people who are back ordered because they've been waiting for a long time. Then I might run the ship orders program again, but this time select only committed quantities because, again, I'm preferring specific orders. Only orders that can be completely shipped. Well, what does that mean? That came from a customer who said, I sell a lot of items that are inexpensive. So I don't want to ship a $10 hammer and a $15 wrench and have $10 shipping fees and then do the same thing again because I can't ship something. I want to only ship orders that can be completely shipped so that I'm not charging my customer for 2 shipping fees, or I may be contract to pay the shipping fees myself. I don't want to pay twice. So that's an example, again, of all of the variations. So I'm just going to touch briefly. Delete orders. So what does this mean? Well, the old order may clutter up your database. It may slow things down. And there may be items on the order that you're never going to make the order because the order's 3 years old. You've forgotten about it. I just want to say all the orders that are 3 years older and older, I just want to delete them so that my inventory statistics, the quantity on order, is accurate. So this will delete and complete the orders using Sage's logic so that the data integrity is protected. And so that's to maintain proper statistics. Sales history inquiry, again, very simple program. It shows you the sales history for different products for different customers in different periods. Again, here's the benefit summary for order entry. Again, I'm not going to go through and read this all, but I wanted the slide to be there so that if you have a recording or you look at the slide deck, you have a record of what I talked about. Purchase order programs. So I think I'm running my 40 minutes. I've got 45 or 50 minutes here, I think. So I want to bring this a little bit to a close. The purchase order programs, many of them are quite analogous to the sales order programs. So for example, extended purchase order entry has smart finders. This is for time for a customer, not a for a vendor, not a customer. It shows vendor optional fields. Again, for the same reason, I want to know something about the vendor I'm ordering from. There's these items here that deal with purchase orders that might have 100 or 150 lines. There's some subtotaling of units that we've done here. Again, set location or set arrival date are things that can be done to all of the detail lines in one step. Purchase from history is analogous to sales for history. I'm a medical clinic. I order supplies from a distributor. I see I'm running out of tongue depressors. I want to order tongue depressors. I want to see, well, the last time I ordered the tongue depressors, what else did I order at the same time? Because I might be running out of those as well. So that's kind of extended order entry, extended purchase order entry. And again, you can see purchase order quantities from other locations as well. Complete purchase orders. Again, I've got old purchase orders that are 3 years old. They're skewing my inventory statistics. I just want to complete them and maybe even complete and delete them. So that's what this program does. You do filtering them. There's lots of different options. You can select all, you click process. There's a log that says what was done and what was not done. And that's kind of, again, a summary of the purchase order. So I was trying to time myself for 45 minutes here. So I'm just going to go on to, I think I have one last slide here, because Jen is going to set up a future webinar. And I want to talk briefly about these. People often talk about database performance. Sage 300 doesn't seem to be performing as well as it used to. What is the reason? Well, TaiRox is made up of myself, my developers, my video people have all worked for Basic Computer Group, Computer Associates, ACPAC International, Sage, and Sage, all of the companies that have owned or developed ACPAC or Sage 300.